Hello, welcome to Wavemaker at CES. This is going to be the first of three editions of Wavemaker live from your living room. For most of us, CES is going to be online this year. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Consumer Electronics Show, now known as CES, is this annual, amazing, incredible technology conference that goes on in Las Vegas, Nevada, every year, usually the first or second week of the year. It's usually in person. It's thousands of people from around the world, tens of thousands at this point. Last year it was put online because of COVID, and this year, unfortunately, the latest variant, the latest trend derailed us as well. So we are here. We are going to be doing these series today, tomorrow, and Friday. And I'm really lucky to be joined by fellow nerds and friends across the WP network who are into technology. So every day we're going to be focusing on a bit of a different topic, and this will lead up to Friday. On Friday, as always, you still get your 2022 tech trends from Wavemaker. It's tech trends through the lens of CES, where we'll cover the larger tech trends that you should be looking out for this year, how we saw them come to life at CES, and what it means for marketers. So today I'm very, very excited. Fellow colleague, working mom, nerd, and person, one of the people I learned the most from at WP. We have Kieley Taylor here. Kieley, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and what you work on.
Hi, so thank you, Whitney. I'm excited to be one of your friends. I think it's in the truest sense of the word. So within the group, what I do is I look after our global partnerships. So usually there's a ton of excitement and buzz around CES because not only is it the Consumer Electronics Show, it also has become an industry event where a lot of the different digital platforms will bring up their roadmap. A lot of the different types of product teams that you maybe wouldn't get an audience with in the standard course of business are in Las Vegas. So I think we're feeling the absence a little bit. We're trying to recreate that magic on behalf of GroupM partnerships as well, from our living room, as it were.
How are you pivoting for your meetings and technology showcases?
So it looks a lot like this. Microsoft Teams and just a lot of patience. Sharing pre-reads to make sure that the time that we have together is as useful as possible.
So it's funny. I've actually found, at least my meetings so far, I don't want to speak for you, more productive because you don't have the panic and the anxiety and the stress of running up and down the Vegas Strip and showing up late and having to go. So, and to your point, everyone has the time to prepare. So they seem a lot more focused and a lot more impactful versus these blur of meetings where you get a recap after. Wait, we met with you?
Yeah, well, especially, I mean, the Strip, because the buildings are so huge, they seem like they're really close together, but it can always take a little bit longer than you expect.
For sure. So I want to talk, we're both home. This is from our living rooms or proverbial living rooms right now. I'm in my bedroom / office / classroom when need be. We want to talk a bit today about smart home, something near and dear to both of our hearts, right? We talk a lot about technology from different angles. A lot of times I'm talking to clients about how do you alleviate frictions, both major and minor, and the things that consumers don't even think can be fixed, but you can make their lives better, especially as we spend more and more time in our homes of all sizes and doing more in our homes, whether it's learning, working out, entertaining, cooking, right? We all have a lot of slashes next to our titles and added a lot of titles this year. And I know from your end, a lot of the conversations around privacy and security that these devices and these technologies and these platforms bring. What are you seeing this year and what really excites you based on your conversations during CES?
Yeah, so I think what's been super interesting is the emphasis around the home with respect to utility. So I think that there's a lot of different companies that are taking their cues probably from what they're seeing around user privacy happening on their handsets, their mobile devices, and taking to heart in their build, what is the data that is appropriate for me to be infusing into my product? What is likely to have a trade-off of utility that someone's actually going to find really meaningful? And what is helping me to actually innovate on the product itself? We didn't used to see that. We used to see basically vacuum cleaners of data. Any bit of data that could be captured in a home environment, in a smart home product, would be gobbled up. And I think with some thanks to the operating system providers and browser owners, if you will, the average consumer is a lot more familiar with the fact that there is data exhaust and that there are meaningful connections that can be made. And they're thinking not just, how useful is it for me to turn on a light bulb? How useful is it for me, for example, to have a perfect fill of my bathtub, to be more sustainable, to be more careful with baby bath time, whatever the use case, but making sure it's within reason in terms of the type of information that they're changing. And I think, going back to what we were chatting about a little bit earlier in terms of the format of our meetings, you are seeing my office that's in my house. Normally, I would not have invited every colleague in to my home. And so I think we are recognizing kind of how invasive things can be when they're invited into this is also a workout room. So I have a splash here too. So those types of spaces. So I think that's one of the bigger themes that I've seen, and I'm super encouraged about it.
Is there anything that you were hoping to see come to life this year that you have not seen or haven't seen the platforms necessarily nail yet when it comes to data and privacy and frankly offerings for the home?
So I think one attribute of data that is still elusive, but it will be that much more impactful, is when you think about accessibility. So in terms of kind of natural language processing, there's a ton of work that's been done, obviously, that's been going on for a number of years. But when you start to have voice, there's a lot less structure around how someone is interacting with a smart home device. If they have a dialect, if they have some kind of speech impediment, you could only imagine that the usefulness is maybe passing them by. So I think you have to have a mass product, you have to have revenues that support a future vision. But I think the evolution of natural language processing beyond written word to be much more inclusive, I think that's my hope. Maybe it's a couple CESs from now, though.
No, I love that. And I think with machine learning, you may be able to get there faster than hopefully a few CESs. But I'm a big believer if tech is not accessible for everybody, it really is accessible for nobody. Right. And we think we saw a lot of failures in what we thought was smart city technology the last 2 years, given how the way that we use public spaces and frankly our homes and public transportation has drastically changed. And we relied on things in ways that we didn't necessarily think about, or the impediments that some people may have because of whatever is going on in their life. Even just things with masks, right? So I have a child who has a speech delay that may have happened with or without the pandemic, but he's in the key moments of his life where he's trying to learn how to speak, and you learn that from seeing other people's mouths. So when they're all covered with masks, what do you do? So I actually spent a lot of last CES and this one looking for options in terms of masks that were clear, that didn't fog, and those tech things. But again, you think of a mask as something that keeps you safe and you need an N95 or 94, but you don't think of technology, if you don't think of it as accessible to everybody, it doesn't work. It's not for everyone, it's for nobody.
Well, I would love if there was more thinking along those lines without needing to have a personal use case. So I think one of the things, what's old is new again, right? So as we're thinking about bringing smart features into homes, I think a lot of things that brands will think about, it could be that shiny object syndrome again, and we could rush and just build a smart something. And it's going to look a lot like that kind of cluttered wasteland of branded apps on your phone that maybe you downloaded once. You paid a ton of money to bring people to that experience, and it wasn't actually that interesting. It wasn't that useful. It wasn't accessible. So, for brands who are thinking about how can they be part of this trend that's definitely here to stay, as the home is more the heart of our living than ever before, I think go back to basics. What are the types of questions that your call center has to answer? What is the site analytics telling you in terms of, places that people are going back to over and over again? It seems like probably there's something there in terms of an answer to a question, or a piece of utility that could be more useful, or coming from a social media background, social listening being a really great place to mine for innovation so that you're making something that's truly useful, and for everyone.
Love that. So I'm a big fan. We've talked about this a lot, right? It's not just about a device being smart. It's about being connected and providing real utility in a safe way, really being intelligent, right? Making life better. Of the devices that you've seen on the show floor so far this year, what has been your favorite smart home device that you've seen?
So I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I really like the Kohler Perfect Fill. So that is a smart faucet, if you will, that makes sure that your tub doesn't overflow, as well as making sure that it's the right temperature. And so Whitney alluded, I have an almost 7-month-old at home, and I did not know that almost everything in my house could kill him, including the bathwater not being the right temperature. So I think that that's such an elegant innovation. Um, and not for nothing, there could be a burst pipe and that looks like an overfilled tub as well. So you can imagine if you have smart alerts, even if you weren't home, your pipes burst. I'm from Minnesota. That's something that does happen from time to time with the weather. Those types of innovations feel really practical and useful, and you need to have a faucet anyway. That said, I do think the the privacy discussion is that kind of the discussion of the moment. I think to follow quickly on its heels will be environmental impact. So you do want to make sure that kind of the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of what kind of data exhaust is happening, how much machine learning is necessary to get to a really elegant solution for a person, and how much is just a lot of carbon being emitted. So I don't think that there's a perfect answer there, but I do think having utility be the guide, especially for something like a perfect fill faucet, which is intended to not waste water. I think that they definitely have that right balance in mind.
Into it. I love that as somebody who spends every night running the bath while cooking dinner, because when the kids are done dinner, it's just pandemonium. So it's much easier to transition them. I love that without having to worry about the overflow. And I do love the technology, right? There's a reason something was invented or created, then there's how it's adopted. So to your point, the burst pipe makes a lot of sense, right? In terms of real utility and things that you didn't think you could track. It never thought to create a device that would help you if your pipe burst and you weren't home to let you know. But adopting that technology alleviates a real friction or a concern point, especially going into winter if you aren't home or you've been away from your home for a bit.
Yeah, with that sharing economy, it all comes full circle, I think.
Yes. Speaking of sharing, thank you for sharing your living room with us. I can't wait to touch base with you throughout CES and hopefully one day in 2022 in person. Thank you for joining us today. I'll be back tomorrow with more conversation around CES and the future of technology and what we're seeing. Kieley, thank you so much for your time and your insight. Really appreciate it. Look forward to
Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day.